And then the tie
it's got to
underneath. If you want to just tighten it just a smidge.
Sure.
I'm just don't want you to see it be like, why didn't they say anything?
No.
Okay. And then the bottom, perfect. Just making sure that's
Okay.
Yeah,
Smidge is a technical term?
yeah. Sorry.
I'm Dan Grossman. I am a member of the Atlas Network board. I have been involved with Atlas Network for over 20 years. I'm also involved in a number of other organizations in the liberty movement. The American Conservation Coalition, Atlas Network, the Consumer Choice Center, Charter Cities Institute, Compassion and Choices, Foundation for Economic Education, Future of Freedom Foundation, Human Rights Foundation, Students for Liberty, Young Voices. I was very fortunate in business and was able to retire when I was 50, and I've spent the last 30 plus years trying to make the interest of the donors in the nonprofit liberty movement better served. I was an economics major in college, and I was getting the other side of the story, and it was so I became familiar with Hayek, like everybody, familiar with Rand. It's not like I had one great libertarian awakening and all of a sudden became a strong advocate. I was basically a libertarian at heart, without even knowing the word, and just as I was in business, and I became aware of of how important, from a commercial and economic point of view, free markets are and liberty is, that made me even more interested. And then I started doing a lot of traveling when I retired, which was in 1995, and saw the totalitarian governments. For some reason, I was attracted to visiting them. They found them more interesting than the others, and tried to meet people and understand things, and became strongly aware that the world was not a free place. Some people think that I'm a coach. I think it's one of the most important roles. The future of this movement, as well as everything else, is going to be with future generations, the next generation, the generation following that, and when you interact with smart, intelligent, and enthusiastic young people, it really is it's really an opportunity that you want to make them be as valuable as they can be. I also feel that there's a lot of efforts, some of it good, to have formalized the way mentorships are, that people have formal mentees, they have programs, some cases people are paid to be mentors, there are coaches, there's all sorts of other things. These are good, but they tend to follow a formula, so that it's very often people's lives change. I tend to stay in touch with I tend to stay in touch with people who are going to be around a long time. I have made a point in my life for at least the last 25 years. Every time a friend of mine dies, I try and find 2 people under 30 to replace them. Well, I've been on 2 hijacked planes, and then I was with Terry on a plane where we lost an engine and had to make a 4-hour detour and go back to where we landed, and they even had, it was really quite well done. It was they had grief counselors waiting for us. There was no grief, but yes, that's about Terry, not about the. Yeah, I was in 2 hijackings in Latin America in the 1970s. I was in business at the time, early 1970s. Hijackings were very, very common events then, common in the sense that, you can fact check me on this, but there were probably a couple of hundred a year, and the vast majority ended up with nobody being hurt, no damage being done, sometimes flying off to Havana to get a lecture from Fidel Castro, and other than being boring, he let you leave afterwards, or let you stay if you wanted. I was in one hijacking in Costa Rica where there was very, very tragic. There were people killed. There were 4 terrorists, and they were Nicaraguan terrorists who were being sought by the then Nicaraguan government, and they were trying to go to Cuba. So they hijacked a plane, and with the idea of going to Cuba. The problem was that the pilots and the crew all themselves were Cuban refugees, and they were not about to fly to Cuba. So the result is we landed back in San Jose, which was where it started from, and there was a battle, and people were killed. The hijackers were, as I recall, was one killed, and there were 3 others who were taken away, supposedly to find justice. And 1 or 2 passengers were killed. The plane was destroyed. Unlike today, the airport stayed open. About 3 or 4 hours after this whole thing, they flew in it. It was not a Pan Am plane, but Pan American Airlines flew in another plane to continue the route for those of us who wanted to go. Absolutely no security checks anywhere along the way. No IDs, no security checks. It was in many ways a wonderful world. If we see what things that have happened in the last 30 years to advance the freedom movement, the overcoming of communism in the Eastern Europe, we could see the impact that the work that has been done in the liberty movement long before I was involved. You compare what happened to the part of the Soviet Empire that was West, Eastern Europe, and the Western countries have all developed into essentially free countries. The part in the East, the Asian part of Russia, where the ideas of liberty were much more dormant, or much less presented, you can see the fact that they still remain totalitarian and unfree countries. You can see much of the same in North Africa. The Arab Spring, while it appears to have been objectively a failure because many of the tyrants returned and some new tyrants came in, at least the people there, the people in North Africa particularly, have now been much more exposed to the ideas of liberty. They much more understand what it is, and while it's not a novel observation by me, in fact I'm copying it from many previous people, if the knowledge is there, when the opportunities come, the people who have that knowledge will create wonderful things. Shortly after Photoshop started, I had a picture of myself bungee jumping in New Zealand. And so I tell people I have a picture of me bungee jumping, and they just assume that I bungee jumped. Well, one of the responsibilities of a board, an unpaid board, a volunteer board, is that it is frankly hard to get people to join the board. So one of the things that I encourage all board members, including myself, to do is to always try and find their replacement, and if they can do better than find the replacement, they should find more than one person, because a board needs to have turnover so that it does not become stale, and it's very, very important that board members really understand what they're doing and are enthusiastic about it. I'm very, very hopeful and have high expectations that the movement will continue to flourish and will continue to have a real impact. We're at a time right now where people are talking about how divisive the country is, how confused the world is. Anybody who was around in the 1960s will realize that things today are much calmer, much more harmonious, and the world is a far, far better place than it was in the 1960s. So I'm very, very hopeful, and I believe that the adversity that people feel we have will largely be overcome. It's surprisingly common that I find people, partners, wives, or husbands. I know that the style is that, the people come, through the Templeton Award, people over the last 2 or 3 years, people are standing up and giving speeches. Now there are so many people who have done so much, and I am thrilled by all that they all do, including those who are totally invisible to what is being accomplished. And the winners of every partner here have people in the background who, without them, they would not be here today. And the world isn't particularly changed if they do or don't know about the accomplishments. The benefit is from what has hopefully been accomplished. If we look at any famous person and, 2 generations later, no one has ever met that person. We go out in the university, you can see buildings named after people, and no one knows anything about them. So I'm not, fame is not worth the effort, because there's nothing there to it. And we're going to have famous people there. You should not say that. But, there are going to be people there who are famous and take a great deal of pride from their fame. So don't put that in.
Can you say one more nice thing about like Students for Liberty?
No. An unrelated question: how much does all this equipment cost?
How much does it
If someone to go out right now and buy what you have here on the open market,
I'll tell you right now, these 2 cameras.
now can I pawn this equipment?
Yeah.
Now that I know its value?